Woo! Hi. Let me just tell you something. In my 20s, I had so much fun. I'm about to get ready to brag on myself for a second. But before I do, I know you're probably thinking right now, like, but isn't he still in his 20s? Because that's what you're thinking. Okay. So, anyway, in my 20s, I had a lot of fun. I was living in New York City, and I had some of the best friends because they were extremely vibrant, energetic. They liked to drink and party. So did I in my early 20s. Did I in my early 20s? Um, and I also made a mistake, though, which kind of added to the fun, which is that I fell in love. I fell like hardcore in love. I fell in love with this guy who was from Paris, and he was studying at NYU. He was only there for a year, and he was one of those like mushy types of people, like kissing in public and making me laugh a lot and really energetic. I mean, I actually kind of felt like a bad Sex in the City character, like what was I forget what her name was, but only in like the black gay version. All right, I was doing my thing. I was having a blast. I was full of life, even at my healthiest too. But then all of a sudden, things changed very quickly. I almost forgot, and I think he forgot that he had to go back to Paris because he was only there for a year. And forgot so much that I found myself in the middle of LaGuardia Airport in New York City, crying because he was packing up to leave, or he was leaving. I mean, crying like ugly, crying like nasty, snotty, just really uncute, losing control of my facial muscles, crying in public, because I don't do that. Heartbroken, just shattered. The first time I fell in love and the first time I've gotten my heart broken. So, go back to the city. He's across the pond. I'm living my life best I can, moving forward. And I'm walking down the street in New York City, and all of a sudden, I felt this huge like clutch in my chest. And I ended up running to the emergency room. And I get there, and I discover by the doctors that my left lung had collapsed. Really? Like, can you add any more to this? So I get in, like, just bring it all on, universe. Clearly, I got my heart broken, just take my lung too. It was on the left side, right next to my heart. So I'm prepping for surgery. My mom is calling, because she's like, my mom, by the way, is my BFF. She is, but she's a mom, though. And she flew to New York City to be by my side. And I woke up, and I was still heavily medicated, like really super high. And my mother looks at me, and she said, Jason, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take you home. I'm bringing you to Minneapolis with me. My mom had been living in Minneapolis for a while. And I was really high, mind you, and I said, okay, I'll come with you. Now, when I was living in New York City and partying, having fun, and being in love and being free, in my mind, I had really, really, really wanted to finish college because I hadn't finished yet. And I thought that maybe I would move to a new city at some point and get it together, but it took a heartbreak and a collapsed lung to get me, and being high, and my mom, all those things to get me to leave and come to Minneapolis or come to Minnesota, the Midwest. So we come to Minneapolis. I stay with my mom for a month and my stepfather, and I cannot live with them more than like 6 or 7 days. So by the time I was healed, I got an apartment downtown in Minneapolis. And then it all sunk in. My life in New York City and the fun and the fierceness and all that was kind of over. And I'm here in Minnesota. And I don't even think in my head that I could actually visualize at this point. I mean, maybe my education wasn't that great, I don't know. But I didn't know where Minnesota was. Where was I on the map exactly? Socially was very, very weird. Walking around the city, people walk way too slow for me. People oftentimes in my social circles are really quiet or very, very stoic. I think of myself as a very expressive person. And so people looking at me like children of the corn, I'm like, well, what do you think about me? I have no idea what's going on. And then to top it all off, I'm walking around my little area in Minneapolis, and I'm like, where are the black people at here? I mean, it literally snowed here Like not just participation in frozen rain, but it's snow. Like where do you keep black people in this town? Like searching for them. I laugh about that, but I was also really experiencing heavy bouts of depression and severe anxiety to the point where I was in my one-room apartment downtown, and I thought for moments like, I don't even need to be here anymore. My entire existence and having fun in New York City was over. Now I'm here in the tundra and on the prairie, and I'm lost. So in my belly aching, I emailed a friend. I actually went on to social media. It was MySpace. For some of the newer millennials, this came before the Facebook, and I get on this little messenger and I write to my friend, oh, I hate Minneapolis, too many white people here, and I'm depressed, and I miss New York, and I miss you, and I miss my friends. And the person who I was emailing, her name is Jessie, and I think of her as my Colombian queen. She's fierce, she's phenomenal, and she's always that person who I asked advice, or when I was going through something, she was my go-to person. And I emailed her with my complaints, and I'm hating life, and maybe I should just come back to New York City. And she said in an email, very short and simple, bloom where you are planted. That was it. And I read it in my depression and heartache and living here in this new bizarre city. And knowing me at the time, I was probably like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And you know, Jesse, I don't like nature and plants, like it's not for me, like this metaphor is not working. And so in my response, I remember I actually wrote, thanks, bye, and moved on. And then about a month later, I could not get this visual out of my head, this little sunflower growing out of a crack of concrete. I was thinking about this bloom where you're planted, and I tried to ignore it. And then, as I applied for college here and trying to kind of keep it moving, I started inquiring about what was the city I was living in, what is this all about, and what is it that I want? In that moment, asking questions of people about where are black people, where are LGBT people, why are people so bizarre here? Asking questions, I didn't realize it until more so now, I was actually planting a seed. I was planting a seed for digging into the community that I am now a part of. When I started to inquire about where people are, what are people doing, and eventually I got responses. I started to learn that there were a lot of intelligent, amazing social justice advocates in this community, a lot of intelligent black people in this community, a lot of queer black people in this community that I couldn't literally see for all the snow. They were there. And when I asked questions and I got involved and started connecting, next thing you know, I found myself doing community organizing with Twin Cities Black Pride. I met Harry Waters Jr., who is a faculty member here at Macalester. I met people who are my best friends to this day, because what I was starting to do was ask questions, and this is the hardest part. I asked questions without trying to not pass judgment. Because the more and more I passed judgment, the more and more I sunk into depression, the more and more I sunk into the feeling of frustration living in the Twin Cities. And it was actually stifling my ability to wait for it to grow. From that point on, I dug my heels deep into school. I dug my heels deep into learning more about what this community was all about. And then I started asking myself a question. What power do I have? Little old black kid from the South with an attitude, a little effeminate, a little neurotic. What power do I have? I'm loud. I am angry enough to actually make some kind of change. I'm persistent. And I think usually, and I've been told, I'm pretty influential. So I was at the University of Minnesota, and I was complaining about not having space now for LGBT people of color. And other students were too. And I said, to hell with it, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it here at the university. We're not gonna ask permission, and we're gonna take up space. That group that I started or co-founded with some other students at the U is still there after 8 years, going strong and serving people of color. I also fell in love again because I had opened myself back up. And it wasn't blocking my ability to grow. So from that moment on, I started to see myself, what potential I had. And again, going back to bloom where you were planted, as much as I ignored that quote because of its nature and its hippiness, I wasn't really feeling. If I actually stop long enough and look around in my surroundings and assess the power that I had more control and more power than I gave myself credit for. Now, this whole talk I'm doing right now, it is not like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps talk, because like I said before, I experienced a lot of mental health issues. I experienced a lot of pain, and I'm a black queer kid in the Midwest, so if I don't tell you something. But this story is more about what do we do and where do we go back to when we forget what power that we actually do have. Bloom where you are planted is not a story or not a statement of being complete. It is a story of continuous growth. So I am still blooming every single day as I move through this world. And I do hope that no matter where you are, no matter where you find yourself at Macalester, on campus, off campus, that you continue to assess the power that you have. Take advice from those who are giving it to you and bloom where you are planted. Thank you for listening.